Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought overall that I would review this little article when it comes down to the overall. So, this is an article overall by this one website named Boxing News 24. And I don't always support this channel when it comes down to it, or I'm not a big supporter of this channel because when it comes down to it, I've seen that it can be very biased and I've seen overall that it can have very intense views. And when you have overall a website that is like that or a media outlet that is like that, you have to be very careful because most likely they're not objective and their logic overall is affected when it comes down to the overall. But anyways, so I've heard this in recent news overall when it comes down to the overall. And I thought it was very interesting when it came down to the overall because apparently, according to many people, especially the pro-black boxing mafia, aka Dante's Boxing Nation, Aki TV, Boxing Eagle, Blue Blood Sports TV, 78 Sports TV, all these other guys, according to them, Terence Crawford is the number one pound for pound fighter. And if you're asking me personally, do I have Terence Crawford as the number one pound for pound fighter? No, I don't. I am within my top five. And a lot of people say top five. Why would he at least not be number two? Because he just doesn't have the resume. And it's just that plain and simple. It's really nothing further into it. Terence Crawford is a great fighter from what I've seen. I have a lot of respect for Terence Crawford, but I can't put him at the number one pound for pound spot. What people's arguments overall would be is that, well, he's looked very dominant, more dominant and more skilled than anybody and all this sort of stuff, and he's not avoiding any smoke. These are the two things overall they mainly use to push Terence Crawford as the number one pound for pound fighter, is what they say. Well, Terence Crawford, when it comes down to, he can look as skilled and dominant all he wants to. At the end of the day, if it's not coming against A-class fighters and these other guys are facing A-class fighters, I'm sorry, that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. So that's why I have to have Lomachenko ahead of him, I have to have Canelo Alvarez ahead of him, and I have to have Errol Spence ahead of him. Because when I rank my pound-for-pound fighters, I rank it off of three categories. I rank it off of resume, which is the top and most important category that you can have. I rank it off of accomplishments and accolades, how many times you've been a champion, have you unified a division, yada, 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 yada. Terence Crawford has an A grade in that. And then the last one, skill set and dominance. Those are the three main categories overall that I rank by. Terence Crawford has an A grade in two of those categories. The problem is he has a C grade in terms of resume. When you talk about Lomachenko and Canelo, they have an A grade in every single category overall that I just mentioned. When you talk about Errol Spence, he has an A grade in two of those and probably a B grade in terms of overall accomplishments and accolades. So when it comes down to the overall, once again, I have to put all those fighters ahead of Terence Crawford. And many people overall may not like that. But when it comes down to the overall, that's just the bottom line. That's how I rank my list. And I'm very consistent, as you will find. Now, if Terence Crawford starts to beat some of the elite names like a Shawn Porter and overall, a Errol Spence Jr., then we can debatably put him up there. Now, a win against Shawn Porter is not just going to automatically put him at the number one pound for pound spots. But if you were to get a win over Errol Spence Jr., then okay, yes, it could. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. We'll have to see overall what Mr. Terence Crawford does. Well, apparently Shawn Porter, and remember, Terence Crawford doesn't duck any smoke. Apparently this is what overall his pro-black fans say, what the pro-black boxing mafia says, and what the Terence Crawford fans in general say. Because not every single one of them is a part of the pro-black boxing mafia. But when it comes down to the overall, this is what they allege. They say overall that Terence Crawford doesn't avoid any smoke overall when it comes down to the overall all sort of stuff. Well, it's very interesting that Terence Crawford doesn't avoid any smoke, yet they seem to be relatively quiet or seemed overall to make excuses when Terence Crawford seemed to blatantly turn down a Shawn Porter fight. And keep in mind, Terence Crawford has been alleging for the past few years overall, ever since he's been in the welterweight division, that these PBC boys, they don't want none of me. They're ducking all the smoke when it comes down to the overall. They don't want any part of me. They've been avoiding me. Keith Thurman's been avoiding me. All these guys have been avoiding me. Well, when the first opportunity came overall, and that's a big part of boxing, is taking and sealing opportunities when it comes down to the overall, all right, in order to get big fights when it comes down to the overall. Which is why Terence Crawford, in my opinion, should have signed with a PBC. To me, that was the first sign that he was not serious about fighting these guys when it comes down to the overall. But secondly, when a Shawn Porter fight was offered to him and Bob Arum said overall, well, Terence, we want you to fight Shawn Porter next. That's what Bob Arum said. Those were his words. You know what Terence said? The Shawn Porter fight doesn't really interest me right now. I don't see what's really in it for me. What do you mean you don't really see what's in it for you, Terence? Apparently these PBC boys are avoiding you. If you want to get your way to Errol Spence Jr., guess what? You got to overall start at the snake's tail. If you want to overall get to the snake's head, guess what? Sometimes you got to start at the tail when it comes down to overall. Sometimes you got to work from, your way from the bottom all the way up to the top. And that's what that's what Terence Crawford, well, really, and Shawn Porter is going to have to do. Both of them overall seem reluctant overall to fight each other because apparently this was a friendship. Apparently they have this strong friendship overall, and that's the reason why they did not want to fight each other when it comes down to the overall. Personally, what do I think about that? I think it's I think it's a load of shit. That's what I personally think it is. I don't believe they have a big friendship at all. Because overall, for them allegedly having a big friendship and all, when it comes down to it, how many times have we heard Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford talk about each other in a positive light? How many times have we seen overall Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter play a pickup basketball game like I've seen Terence Crawford play with both PBC and Top Rank fighters, with Andre Ward, Shakur Stevenson, Adrian Broner, yada, 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 when it comes down to the overall? How many times have we seen that? I've seen Terence Crawford even approach Errol Spence Jr. Never once seen him having a conversation with Shawn Porter. How many times have we seen Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford ringside with each other, talking with each other in some big fights? They could have been there for the Tyson Fury overall and Deontay Wilder fight. That was a PBC and Top Rank fight. How come they were not sitting ringside by each other? How come I've never heard Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter say, oh yeah, I was talking to Terence Crawford the other day. I was texting Shawn Porter the other day. I was doing this the other day. Yeah, that's my boy. How come when Terence Crawford unified the 140-pound division and Shawn Porter was relevant, and both of them were relevant, how come Shawn Porter, I didn't see him on Twitter say, oh, you know what? That's my boy. That's my boy Terence Crawford right there when it comes down over. That's my boy Terence Crawford right there. I can't believe overall he did that. That's greatness right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's my best friend, Terence Crawford. And when Shawn Porter became a 2-time world champion in the welterweight division, how come overall Terence Crawford didn't say, oh my God, I can't believe this. This guy right here, we go way back. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe he won another title when it comes down to the overall. Take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. My best friend, Shawn Porter. Isn't it very interesting that these guys, and apparently Shawn Porter had a wedding recently. I don't remember if this was late last year, mid last year, or early this year. Apparently Shawn Porter overall had a wedding recently. And what do you know? Who wasn't there? Terence Crawford. So you would swear to God, it's almost like these guys who allege to be best friends so badly overall to that they're not going to fight each other, almost don't know each other. Isn't that interesting, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that interesting? And I have no doubt overall that maybe they did grow up in the amateurs together and that they were somewhat friendly with each other. But this bullshit narrative that they're blood brothers and this strong bond and that's why they're not fighting. Come on. Come on. When it comes down to the overall. You're just seriously not going to sit here and tell me that that's the main reason why they're not fighting. When it comes down to the overall. That is a bullshit excuse when it comes down to the overall. And the Pro Black Boxing Mafia has been very quiet about it when it comes down to the overall. Will allow me to intervene. Because Shawn Porter now apparently has ruined their friendship when it comes down to the overall. Because apparently this is what the Pro Black Boxing Mafia was saying. Well, why would Shawn Porter, if Shawn Porter wants to ruin the friendship and call out Terence Crawford, then overall, so be it. But friendship overall is more important than making a big fight. Oh, is that so? When it comes to, well, apparently Shawn Porter has now ruined the friendship. Apparently Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter's bond is completely ruined. Apparently Terence Crawford must be posting up a poster of Shawn Porter right now on his wall and throwing darts at his face because overall Shawn Porter apparently has now ruined the bond. Apparently he's now ruined the bond because Shawn Porter, when it comes down to the overall, has now called out Terence Crawford. When it comes down to the overall, he has now called out Terence Crawford and said, hey, this is a big fight. Maybe we can make this. And you know what? This is the best fight to make. Shawn Porter claims he wants a guy with a belt. Terence Crawford claims overall that he's being avoided. They both claim they're being avoided. Terence needs a big name. Hey, perfect fight. It's the perfect puzzle pieces overall together when it comes down to the overall. So why not make the fight? Well, interesting. This was posted 6 days ago, and I still have not seen Terence Crawford respond to it whatsoever. I find it very, very interesting. But anyways, let's read the article. And let's see overall what this guy, Jeff Aronow, and overall let's see what also Shawn Porter had to say. So let's see. Shawn Porter feels a fight between him and Terence Crawford will be a big event when boxing restarts. Porter, 33-17 KOs, views a battle between him and WBO 147-pound champion Terence Crawford, 36-0, 27 KOs, being on par with last February's pay-per-view clash between WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Well, I don't think it would be that big, but it certainly would be a big pay-per-view. If they have the goal to put Amir Khan versus Terence Crawford on pay-per-view, I think overall they can put Shawn Porter versus Terence Crawford on pay-per-view. Let's just say that. So, because I've already heard a couple people make excuses, well, that fight can't happen because the pay-per-view numbers wouldn't be big enough. Well, we already know that's out of the, book when it comes down to overall. So, cross that off the list. Let's go into the next one. Wilder and Fury were an example of two fighters that compete on different networks that are willing to fight each other. Porter 32 maintains that he and Top Rank promoted Crawford can do the same thing that Fury and Wilder did by coming together for a dual network pay-per-view broadcast. Compared to Crawford's recent matches, Porter should bring in a lot of pay-per-views. If the match takes place inside of a studio, then there will be less money to be made. Porter needs a fight against Crawford because he's starting to feel like he's being avoided after his hard battle with Errol Spence Jr. Crawford might be one of the few welterweights that are willing to fight him. Well, allegedly, according to the Pro Black Boxing Mafia and Terence Crawford. However, Crawford's promoters at Top Rank might have other ideas who they want to match him against. Well, no, we're not gonna blame Top Rank here, because many people overall love to blame Bob Arum. They love to blame Top Rank overall as a scapegoat usually, and sometimes that can be true. Bob Arum has gotten in his way of fights before, but no, this is not one of those cases. Bob Arum said overall that, well, we're gonna try and put Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford in the ring together. And guess who said overall first that they were not interested in the fight? Well, Shawn Porter, I guess, came out with it. Then Terence Crawford said overall, that fight does not really interest me right now. What do you mean it doesn't really interest you right now, Terence? Apparently you need a big name. And Shawn Porter said overall that he wanted a person with a belt, so why not fight each other? But at least Shawn Porter overall seems to have come to his senses and realized that, you know what, if I want a big fight with Manny Pacquiao or Errol Spence, which is what it seems that he wants overall, I'm going to have to fight this dude, because these guys are not just going to face me out of nowhere unless overall I maybe back them into a corner or unless I earn it. When it comes down to the overall, a certain amount of things, Shawn Porter does not seem to overall want to fight. He says he wants a guy with a belt. So what does that mean? He either wants Errol Spence Jr. or Manny Pacquiao. And losing to a Terence Crawford right now, I think overall would have been risky for him, or at first at least, he looked at it as very risky for him at first, because when it comes down to it, if you were to lose to a Terence Crawford, someone who has never really even stepped into the big fish pond in terms of great elite competition when it comes down to it overall, if you were to lose to a Terence Crawford overall in a fight, then that would mean that Shawn Porter is a official gatekeeper. Now, in my opinion, he's a gatekeeper anyways. But if Shawn Porter were to lose to Terence Crawford, that'd be the fourth loss in his career. And basically, you could debate that Shawn Porter has lost every big fight in his career besides the Danny Garcia fight. So it is what it is when it comes down to the overall. But that's the bottom line when it comes down to the overall. So that's a very risky fight, because if Shawn were to lose to a Terence Crawford, even though overall he is a pound-for-pound fighter, first of all, he's not going to get the paycheck that he would against Errol Spence and Pacquiao. Secondly, overall, his stock is going to go a decent amount down. And it's going to be very hard for him to build back up his career when it comes down to the overall. All right? So overall, that's the reason why I think Shawn Porter was looking at it and saying, you know what? Maybe I'll hold out for something a little bit better. And in terms for Terence Crawford, Terence overall, I think, realizes overall that Shawn Porter is very high risk, but a little bit low reward. And if he were to lose to a Shawn Porter, basically that would be his first official A-class fighter. And if he were to lose to Shawn Porter, who is a gatekeeper in the division when it comes down to the overall, it wouldn't look overly great. Now, of course, Terence Crawford called out Danny Garcia off of a loss. Excuse me. And we already heard that excuse overall from the Terence Crawford fans and the Pro Black Boxing Mafia when it came down to the overall that, well, what makes you think that Terence wants to face Shawn Porter when it comes down to the overall? Because not only are they best friends, which we've already seen is bullshit when it comes down to the overall. I've already explained my reasonings why. But when it comes down to the overall, bottom line is this. And they also said, well, what makes you think overall, Shawn Porter just recently lost? Well, that can't be the case because he called out Danny Garcia right after he lost to Keith Thurman. Isn't that peculiar when it comes down to the overall? Isn't that interesting? A lot of people don't remember that, but he called out Danny Garcia after he lost to Keith Thurman. So isn't that interesting when it comes down to the overall? Isn't that interesting, folks? But anyways, when it comes down to the overall, like I said, when it comes to Terence, I think if he were to lose to Shawn Porter, many people overall would look at him and say, well, he's a hype job. He never really was that great to begin with. I think Terence and Shawn Porter are trying to hold out for a Manny Pacquiao fight or an Errol Spence fight. So just in case they were to lose to those guys overall, many people overall would say, well, they lost to one of the, best fighters in the world. If Terence Crawford loses to Shawn Porter, it's not going to look very good. And if Shawn Porter loses to Terence Crawford, a certain amount of people understand, but it's overall going to decrease his stock majorly when it comes down to the overall. And I'm not saying overall that losing to Errol Spence is a great thing either. But losing to Errol Spence, it's a prolific match. It was a very tough fight when it comes down to the overall, And a lot of people knew Errol Spence. A lot of casual fans knew Errol Spence. There's a certain amount of casual fans that do not know Terence Crawford. And a lot of people be like, what are you talking about? Terence Crawford is not as popular as Errol Spence. If you ask certain people on the streets overall who really don't watch boxing that often, random people, I'm telling you what, Errol Spence is probably going to be more known than Terence Crawford is. And that's the bottom line. It is what it is when it comes down to the overall. All right. So if he were to lose to a Terence Crawford, that's not really going to give him as big as a payday as some of these other guys. And overall, someone who's not looked at as prolific, it's going to hurt his stock. And in terms of Terence Crawford, if he loses to a Shawn Porter right now, overall, he's going to be looked at as a complete hype job. All right. So it is what it is. He's going to be looked at overall as a lot of people overlook at Gennady Golovkin right now. Or even Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. That when he lost overall, when they lost their first fight, they were like, wow, you know what? Maybe we overall were a little bit too, shipping this guy a little bit too hard. When it comes down to over. That's just my theory when it comes down to over. And that's all that is, a theory. I can't give you any facts, but that's overall personally what I think it is. Because Shawn Porter, he said he wants people with the belt. So who are the people with the belt? They're Manny Pacquiao and they're Errol Spence Jr. So he wants a payday. He wants a prolific, possible fight overall to where he knows that if he were to lose to them, people overall are still going to continue watching him. If he loses to Terence Crawford, that may not happen again. And if Terence Crawford were to lose to Shawn Porter, his stock is going to go way down. So I think they realize overall the risk of fighting each other. Well, it seems like Shawn Porter finally realized overall the benefits of possibly fighting each other. When it comes down to the overall, we'll see what Terence Crawford does. Once again, I have not seen him respond. I have not seen him do anything. And Terence Crawford, for allegedly wanting all the smoke, I find it very interesting how he's never tried to sign with the PBC, how overall he's not chasing after this fight, because once he heard Shawn Porter overall was available, no matter what Shawn Porter said about this, Terence Crawford should be lunging at this fight. He not only should be trying to get this fight, he should be running at this fight at Usain Bolt speed when it comes down to the overall. Because apparently every PBC boy is avoiding you over there, right? Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao, all those guys are avoiding you. Now, Manny Pacquiao, I do believe, did avoid Terence when he was over at Top Rank, when they were both over at Top Rank. But when it comes down to the overall, bottom line is this, Terence, you should be seizing this opportunity. You know why he's not seizing that opportunity, ladies and gentlemen? Or at least as of right now. I'll give him some time, but I'll tell you what I think it is. He was never as serious about fighting those boys as he claimed to be. So it's very interesting. We'll see what Terence Crawford responds with. Hopefully he does take the Shawn Porter fight. But this must be devastating for their quote-unquote friendship when it comes down to the overall. That's just all I was thinking about. Poor Terence Crawford, to be betrayed by a friend like that when it comes down to the overall. I mean, apparently the reason why he was not, calling out, Shawn Porter was because of the friendship. Well, now, apparently, overall, the friendship is just broken. The bond is just, just completely split in half. So it's very interesting to see overall what's going to happen here. Let's see what else Shawn Porter had to say in this. How much of this did I even read? I don't even remember. Let's see. Let's see. I think I'm one of the fighters that you have to beat and have to fight to be a part of greatness. And I do know there's more out there for boxing. I do think that there are big fights to be made when you cross the road, particularly in the welterweight division. Even after that fight, I thought to myself, who could do this again exactly as those guys said? I said, me and Bud Crawford, I can do this. I don't know if Bud can do that with another fighter, but it would be the same type of event. But I do know myself, Bud and I can do it. Well, it wouldn't be as big as the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight, but it'd be a very big fight. We haven't had any conversations in some time, but that's still a fight that can be made out there, said Porter about Crawford. For me personally, it's a fight that I never saw myself having, and now recently in the last 2 years, with him moving up to the welterweight division, I thought to myself, wow, I can fight this dude. Porter would be an improvement over the guys at that Top Rank has been matching against Crawford since they started promoting him. The question is, will Top Rank be willing to risk putting Crawford in there with an opponent like Porter? No, the question actually right now is, will Crawford be willing to take the risk to fight Porter? Because he's the only one that seems reluctant right now. That's the bottom line. Anyways, the promoting company has sunk a lot of money into Crawford bringing him this far, and he's failed to become a star. If they put an interesting, what did you just read there? He failed to become a star. I'm telling you, that's why Shawn Porter overall is not too hot about fighting Terence Crawford. And this bullshit friendship, that's a fallacy. That's a fallacy. All right. The reason why Shawn Porter is not wanting to fight anyone else right now, besides anyone who has a belt, because the main two people who have a belt right now are highly prolific. Not only are they going to give him a payday, but overall, if he does fight them, whether he wins or loses, it's not really a huge loss at the end of the day, because when it comes down to the overall, those guys are looked at as either the best welterweight in the world in Errol Spence right now, or a living legend in Manny Pacquiao. If you lose to a Terence Crawford, that is going to affect your stock majorly. And same with Terence Crawford. If Terence Crawford fights his first official A-class fighter, and if he loses, that's not a good look. But it is what it is. Danny Garcia lost a 12-round decision to Porter in 2018, and Errol Spence squeaked by Porter. Well, I shouldn't say squeaked. I think he beat him quite handily by Porter in winning a 12-round split decision. It should have not been a split decision, last September. When Spence was asked last week if he'd be interested in fighting Porter again, he quickly said no, and that's his right. Porter wants to start Crawford negotiations. Interesting, guys. This friendship, man. I don't know. This friendship right here, I think it's broken. I think the bond will never be repaired. Of course, I'm fucking around when it comes down to the overall, but the bottom line is this. It was so dumb. In the first place, it was overall, in my opinion, too alleged that it was a friendship that was stopping this fight. There have been certain friends overall in the past that have fought each other. I believe Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward became friends after their first fight, and guess what? They fought each other a couple more times. Now, maybe some of you overall might say, well, that was that first result when it came down to the overall, and it was controversial, so maybe they just wanted to see how it turned out, the other times. Bottom line is this. They were friends and they fought. Mayweather and Zab Judah, I believe, were friends. They fought. And Muhammad Ali was friends with some of the fighters that he fought. All right, and a certain amount of the other guys were friends with who they fought. That's the bottom line, all right? I don't want to hear this bullshit excuse of, oh, they're friends, that's why they can't. No. Terence Crawford is alleging that these PBC boys are avoiding him. He's desperate, apparently. He's frothing at the mouth for one of these big fights. So you should be lunging at this Shawn Porter fight. But what does Terence Crawford say? Oh, it's not really that big of a deal. I don't think there's anything on the table for me for a Shawn Porter fight. What are you talking about, Terence? What the hell are you talking about? Anyways, let's see overall. Continue. Let's see. I don't think it's a secret anymore that we've had a conversation. Okay, let's see. That we've had a conversation that I'll probably take probably 2 or 3 years ago. Hey, we'll get together and we'll talk and we'll see if we want to make this thing happen. All right. Did I already read that? I can't remember. Let's see. That conversation hasn't happened yet. Did I read all this? I don't think I did. Okay. That conversation hasn't happened yet, but after this quarantine, something big has to happen for sports, has to happen for boxing, and has to happen for the business. We'll see if Terence and I can get together, talk, and make it happen. If not, then Shawn Porter is going to need to make something big happen with someone else, said Porter. It would be a good idea for Porter not to put too much time and effort into facing Crawford. If the interest isn't there on Crawford's part, Porter should move on towards fighters that he has a better shot at meeting. I don't agree with that completely, but, whatever. It's already common knowledge that Top Rank is interested in matching Crawford against former IBF welterweight champion Kell Brook in his next fight. In my opinion, a Kell Brook fight would not be as big as a Shawn Porter fight, but anyways. Brook has a lot of boxing fans in the UK, and Crawford can expand his fan base in that country by facing him. Somewhat. The problem with Kell Brook overall is that he kind of is damaged goods. And I would give Crawford credit for defeating a Kell Brook. That's not a bad fight, but the problem is that Kell Brook has not been the same fighter ever since he lost to Errol Spence Jr., and we can clearly see that. Shawn Porter overall, even though he's taken a couple of losses, you can clearly tell he has the same fighter, within him. So a Shawn Porter fight at this point in time is going to be a better fight, but I'm not even sure if Kell Brook at this point in time would be an A-class fighter. Like, I'm not sure how many big fights he would win right now, in all honesty. I'm not even sure if Kell Brook could beat Shawn Porter right now. He beat him a while ago. I'm not sure if Kell Brook could do it right now, in all honesty. But anyways, let's see. But that's pretty much about it for this. That's pretty much all I'm going to put into this. I just thought that it was interesting when it comes down to it, because many people allege that Terence Crawford wants all the smoke. They said that Shawn Porter and Terence are not going to fight each other because of his alleged friendship, which obviously is a farce. But when it comes down to the overall, like I said, we'll see what happens when it comes down to the overall. I'll give Terence some time. But as of right now, like I said, I'm just calling it the way I see it. It does not seem Terence Crawford is really officially wanting to fight these guys as much as he claims. Terence Crawford has been barking at the moon this whole entire time. I think he's been selling wolf tickets, but his actions speak louder than words at the end of the day. And his actions have not showed me that he wants to face these PBC guys as much as he claims. Anyways, we'll see what Terence Crawford does, because Shawn Porter's not the only guy that's been calling him out. Keith Thurman's called him out. Apparently Jamel Charlo's called him out. All right? So we'll see what Mr. Terence Crawford does. I think he needs to take advantage of these opportunities if Shawn Porter overall is being real. But anyways, that's about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.